Let's talk about preparing for combat training. Hello everyone, so I'm Jonathan, also known as the PC Genie, and I'll talk about general sorts of preparation and how to prepare yourself quite a bit in advance, and then we'll talk about actual warm-up and things just before you start the actual drills and training. So for starters, with regards to general preparation, I'd recommend that you have good clothing that's sort of loose and allows freedom of movement, so plenty of movement all over, because with the various techniques that you'll be using, then you need something that can do quite a bit. So for example, certain work trousers or jeans can't stretch very much, and sometimes if you're, let's say, stabbing with a sword, which is, I presume, a realistic expectation if we're talking about sword fighting, then you're going to need to do a few lunges, which can be as deep as that. Just basically as far as your flexibility will go, which is probably further than the flexibility of some trousers that you may own. That's trousers or pants in American, whichever. Apart from that, again, similar sort of thing with the arm. Make sure you've got good free movement all around in various directions, so that when you're doing various cuts and thrusts, again, you're able to do all sorts of things without it ending up ripping. And on a related note, I would recommend, apart from having material, clothes that are good for that sort of thing, I'd recommend having clothes that you don't mind necessarily getting destroyed. Because sometimes when you're doing things like, especially sort of grappling and wrestling, someone might be grabbing your shirt, or you might end up, depending on the environment, you might be scraping about in the mud if it's outdoors, or might be getting carpet burns, or all sorts of things that may end up causing rips and tears and absolute shredding of certain items of clothing. I, for example, once had someone grappling with me as part of some exercise, where he'd start from grabbing the shirt and wrist locks and stuff like that we'd be doing from there, but I ended up having the shirt completely ripped open. So if you have a shirt that you don't want that to happen to, then it might be worth making sure not to wear it when it's time for combat training. Beyond that, it's good to have shoes that are reasonable. I would recommend, you might find it different later on, but personally I would recommend not having anything like sandals or anything open foot, because if someone accidentally walks on you, and that does happen, someone's closing distance and they accidentally step on your toes, you want to have shoes that don't mind that happening, as well as just generally moving around. You're not going to end up kicking things, stubbing your toe and maybe causing an ingrowing toenail or whatnot. I would also recommend fingernails. I suppose if you want you could have them a bit longer, but always bear in mind there's quite the risk of them breaking and splitting along awkward ways that will be extremely painful. So I personally would recommend keeping your fingernails fairly short, so then, for things like grappling, for holding weapons, for getting struck on the hands, sometimes it's not going to cause some kind of severe pain. Just apart from that, things like earrings and other jewellery, you can, if you must, you can wear them, but I would really recommend you don't. Things like piercings especially will catch. They could start ripping open on the skin, really undesirable. You could have, hair there. You could have things like necklaces and earrings. They can start pulling you and lugging you about, and it's extremely uncomfortable. So that's another preparation I'd recommend doing. And beyond that, just having items that you feel comfortable in. If you're going to run a mile or go on a hike, assuming if you weren't going to be doing it all day, and it was just sort of for a few hours, then something you think you can move around fairly quickly in, something you're fairly nimble in, that sort of thing. So now that's out of the way, just one final point. Don't have any large meals before you go to training, and make sure to bring some water or other kind of drink that's not alcoholic, because you're going to be doing a lot of exertion and you don't want to be in an adverse scenario of feeling unwell or just being way too fatigued by having too much food first, or by not bringing enough to drink. So we shall move on to the standard sorts of warm-ups. Now these are just recommendations by myself. There are people from various martial arts clubs and people into fitness who could probably come up with even better ideas than I can, but here are just a few of the basics. So I'd recommend that you'd get your arms going. So the general rule is the more ridiculous it looks, the more useful it is, but just a few kind of windmill motions with your arms backwards and then forwards, doing this with each arm. Obviously you should be doing this for about a minute or so at a time. I'm just going through them quickly for you. And this should just help loosen up the joints around the shoulders, so you don't pull any muscles and do anything nasty around there. And then once you've done that, you can then have an arm, basically do sort of like a Superman grip, which is clenching your arm in, and then pull one arm into the chest with the other arm, and you should feel a bit of sort of, usually with these stretches, you should feel some kind of tension. It shouldn't be painful, but just have that sort of warm stretching feeling, and then a few seconds of that, and then of course swap over, do the same kind of thing. Again, it's loosening up the arms and helping to make sure you don't stretch anything badly. Maybe do a few wrist movements, just something nice and gentle to make sure that you loosen that up. Allow full movement, so it helps to take a hand, use the other hand, and just start to bring the fingers back, and you should feel stretching along these joints and also just around here on the wrists. Different people have different flexibilities. I'm very inflexible, so it will look quite minimalistic to you from here or wherever. But some people can stretch their fingers almost back to their forearm. Again, it depends on how flexible you are. Different people will, have different bodies, of course. But just as long as you're going far enough to get that bit of stretch feeling going. And then of course swap to the other arm. And then you do the same thing again with the other hand. Do that for a bit. And then you have the same kind of thing going, but this time rather than outwards, you're going inwards with the hand. So clench your fist, start pulling, and then just start to pull it towards the forearm. Not so far that it's painful, just enough that you start to feel that warm sort of stretching sensation just along the forearm around the area of the wrist. Do that for a few seconds, and then do the same kind of thing again on the other hand. Hang on, not feeling it yet. There we go. Start to get that feeling. Good. Now one thing that can help with regards to stretching the arms further is, this is a difficult one, basically one arm over and one arm under behind your back, and then you should be able to, I'll turn around so you can see, should hopefully be able to lock your fingers almost like two hooks clinging to each other, and then do that. You'll usually feel, especially around the shoulders, start to feel a stretch going on. Do that for a few seconds, and then swap round, see if you can do it the other way. I might find it more difficult one way than the other, but just, even if you can't lock your fingers in, you haven't got enough flexibility, just as far as you can so you can get that stretching feeling going on, and so it's not painful. And then when you've done that, I'll need to lower the camera. There we go. So basically, we'll be stretching out. It'll be a bit like a lunge, like I've gone, ha! And tried to stab you in the face. And basically, let's give it a sideways on view. Trying to stretch out, I'm not sure I have enough room in here, but trying to stretch out as far as you can, depending on your flexibility again. To stretch deeper, keep this leg straight and just widen the stance further. You shouldn't really have your knee going further forward than your heel. If you are, it'll start to put unnecessary strain and be quite painful potentially. And then start to deepen that squat, and you'll feel around the groin and under the legs stretches there. Do the same thing again, swap to the other side, and try to make sure you're not having your heel or any part of your foot leaving the floor, and just have it stretch out. Keep the legs straight and you'll feel the tension. And then we'll be doing what would be the opposite of that. So starting this, and this can easily move from each other. So what I want to do now is start to crouch down and this is tough for me. I've not got much endurance and strength, but start to crouch down. There we are, and I'll go further back so you can see better. And then crouch back down again. Trying to keep this leg straight, depending on your flexibility. I'm not very flexible. Oh, and there we are. Usually try to find an area to run around. Just do a bit of, you don't need to go extreme with sprinting, but just do a bit of jogging. Just general jogging around, you know, as you'd see runners doing. But apart from that, while doing so, also try to loosen up your muscles by doing things like similar kinds of arm movements. Trying to go in and out of your arms, loosen those up. And also try to do things like kicking up like this. And ideally, if you have your hands behind your back, try to see if your heel can kick into your hands there or onto your buttocks. Similarly, doing the same sort of thing, but raising your knees as high as they go as you're jogging along. And it is quite tiring. Warm-up is usually, especially with depending on your level of fitness, it can be quite intense, but it's worth it. And then, what else is there? Not much. But no, that's basically it really. Oh, and head stretches are useful as well, so I'll start looking left. And I just go, depending on my neck flexibility, just as far as it goes to feel that stretch. Again, similar thing, you feel the stretch but nothing painful. Let that go for a bit. Do the other side. Get that tension going but nothing too painful. There we are. A few half circles. Loosen it up. So then if someone throws you to the ground or something else gets you into an awkward position, it's not going to cause you to have some kind of injury. So yes, that's it. And from then, just try to practice safely. Have fun guys, and see you later.